My name is Ethan. I'm 31, and I run a little photography shop called Still Frames on Lighthouse Avenue in Monterey, California. The place is half studio, half gallery, half archive of other people's memories. People bring me their old film rolls, water-damaged albums, Polaroids they found in attic boxes, and I scan, restore, and print them. On slow days, I shoot portraits or weddings, but mostly I'm the guy strangers trust with the only copies of their past. It was a bright Saturday in July, the kind of California morning where the sun feels like it's trying to burn the fog away for good. I'd opened early because I had a stack of negatives to finish before the weekend crowd showed up. The front door was propped open with a brick, letting the salt air drift in. I was behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, wiping dust off a lightbox when she walked in. She was carrying a small cardboard box under one arm and wearing a faded linen dress the color of sea glass. Her hair was dark with a few silver threads catching the light, pulled back loosely. She looked maybe early 40s, maybe older. Time had been kind, but it had definitely stopped by. There was a quiet confidence in the way she moved, like she already knew exactly where everything in the world belonged. She set the box on the counter and gave me a small smile. "Morning," she said. "I was told you're the best at bringing dead photos back to life." I wiped my hands on the towel I keep tucked in my belt and looked up. "I do my best. What have you got?" She opened the lid. Inside were a few cracked negatives, a couple of curled prints, and one of those old disposable cameras that still had film inside. I started lifting them out carefully, and that's when she noticed my left hand. Her eyes stopped on the ring. Simple white gold band, worn smooth in places. I'd worn it so long I honestly forgot it was there most days. She didn't flinch or look away. She just asked, soft and direct, like she was reading the weather. "So, the ring on your finger, what's it for?" I glanced down as if seeing it for the first time in years. My stomach did a small flip. I laughed, but it came out thin. "Old habit, I guess. I keep meaning to put it away." She tilted her head slightly, sunlight cutting across her cheekbones. "You came to work in a place full of other people's memories," she said. "But you're still wearing yours on your hand." There was no accusation in her voice, only curiosity, like she was turning a photograph to see it in better light. I set the negatives down and rubbed the back of my neck. "It's complicated." "It always is," she answered. I don't know why I told her the truth. Maybe because the shop was empty. Maybe because the sun was pouring in and everything felt a little unreal. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident up on Highway 1, bad one. Spent 6 weeks in the hospital. When I woke up, chunks of the previous 5 years were just gone. Doctors called it retrograde amnesia. Selective, they said. I lost whole people, whole places. I still don't remember getting engaged. I don't remember the woman I was supposed to marry. All I know is when I finally came home, this ring was on my finger and everyone looked at me like I died and come back wrong. I held up my hand, turning the band under the light. They told me her name was Nora, that she was older than me, that we'd been together 7 years, that she waited at the hospital every day until I opened my eyes and looked at her like she was a stranger. She left the ring and walked out. I've worn it ever since because, I don't know, guilt maybe, or proof that part of my life actually happened. The shop was silent except for the low hum of the air conditioner and the distant cry of gulls outside. She didn't gasp or offer pity. She just looked at me for a long moment, something gentle and unreadable moving behind her eyes. Then she said, very quietly, "Some things we keep not because we remember, but because we're afraid of what forgetting completely would mean." She reached into the box and pulled out the last item, a single black and white print, edges curled, of a woman standing in this exact shop years ago, sunlight pouring through the window, just like today. The woman was smiling straight at the camera, holding up a small white gold ring between her fingers. The woman in the photograph was her. I felt the floor tilt. She placed the photo on the counter between us, the ring in the picture catching the same light as the one on my hand. "I'm Nora," she said, voice steady, soft. "And I think you just found the quietest place in America." The next time I saw her was 2 weeks later, on a Thursday afternoon, when the sky over Monterey was the color of bleached bone. The shop was quiet. The only sound was the soft whir of the film scanner and the occasional clatter of negatives in the tray. I hadn't slept much since that morning. The photograph she'd left behind, her, younger, holding up the same ring that was still on my finger, sat propped against the register like a ghost I couldn't bring myself to file away. The bell above the door chimed. I looked up, and there she was again. Nora carried the same small cardboard box, now closed, and a paper bag from the bakery down the street. She wore a faded navy sundress and sunglasses pushed up into her hair. The sunlight behind her made the edges of her silhouette glow. I brought lunch, she said, lifting the bag, and the rest of the roll you didn't finish developing last time. Figured you might want to see what's actually on it. I stared longer than I should have. My mouth went dry. She set the bag on the counter and slid the box forward. I can come back another day if you're busy. No, I said too quickly. Now's good. I locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. The shop felt smaller with just the two of us in it. I led her to the back room where the enlarger and the old projector live, the place I usually only let myself go when I need to hide. I pulled down the screen, killed the overhead lights, and loaded the disposable camera's film into the ancient slide projector I keep for clients who still shoot film. The first few frames were nothing special: beach sunsets, a dog on a leash, a blurred shot of the aquarium. Then the images sharpened. A younger version of me, hair longer, smiling like I didn't have a care in the world, standing on Cannery Row with my arm around a woman. Her, Nora. She was laughing at something off camera, the wind pulling her hair across her face. My younger self was looking at her like she was the only thing in focus. Another slide. The two of us on a blanket at Asilomar, her head on my shoulder, my hand, wearing the exact same ring, resting on her knee. Another. A close-up of our hands intertwined, the ring glinting in late afternoon light. The reel clicked to the end. The room went dark except for the blank white square on the screen. I couldn't move. My pulse was loud in my ears. Nora spoke first, voice low, steady. You were 24, I was 35. We met at a gallery opening in San Francisco. You were showing some black and white street shots. I was there because a friend dragged me. You told me my laugh sounded like the shutter on your favorite camera. I thought it was the worst pickup line I'd ever heard. I still married you 6 months later. She paused. I heard her take a slow breath. We were happy, Ethan. Really happy. You quit your job at the paper to go full freelance. I sold the house I'd bought with my ex-husband, and we rented that little blue place on Wave Street. You used to say the light in the kitchen was perfect at 4:30 in the afternoon, and you'd make me stand there just so you could photograph me drinking coffee. I swallowed hard. Nothing she said triggered a memory. It was like listening to someone describe a movie I'd never seen. Then the accident, she continued. You were driving back from Big Sur after a shoot. Black ice. The car rolled 3 times. They said you coded twice on the table. When you finally opened your eyes after 6 weeks, you looked at me like I was the nurse bringing pain meds. You asked who I was. The doctors explained selective retrograde amnesia. Whole years just erased, including us. Her voice cracked on the last word, the first fracture I'd heard. I sat by your bed every single day. Read you our old emails out loud. Showed you the photos. Played the stupid playlist we made. Nothing came back, and every time you looked at me with that polite, empty smile, something inside me died a little more. I realized I wasn't waiting for my husband to come back. I was watching a stranger wear his face. She turned to me in the half-dark. I could just make out the shine in her eyes. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I was terrified that if I stayed, I'd spend the rest of my life mourning someone who was sitting right in front of me, breathing, but gone. I chose to disappear before I disappeared completely. I told the doctors to tell you I'd moved on. I took off my ring, put it in your hand while you were sleeping, and I walked out. I thought it was mercy. The silence that followed was crushing. I looked down at my left hand, the ring I'd worn for 3 years like a scar I didn't understand. All this time I thought I was the one abandoned. I thought I was the one carrying guilt for a woman I couldn't remember hurting. But I was the one who had hurt her by forgetting her completely. My legs gave out. I sat hard on the stool behind me, head in my hands. I'm sorry, I whispered. It felt pathetic and enormous at the same time. Nora stepped closer. I heard the soft brush of her dress, then felt her hand settle lightly on the back of my neck, fingers threading gently through my hair. Don't, she said. Don't be sorry for something you didn't choose. I looked up. Tears were sliding down her cheeks, but her expression was calm, almost relieved. I came back today, she said, because I wanted you to see the life we had. Not so you'd remember it, but so you'd know it was real. And so I could finally stop carrying it alone. The projector clicked one last time, blank light washing the room white. I reached up and closed my hand around hers, the hand that had once worn a matching ring. I still didn't remember her, but for the first time since I woke up in that hospital bed, I desperately wanted to. I don't remember driving home, I only remember the bottle. It was a fifth of Maker's Mark I kept on the top shelf for nights that never came. That night came. I sat on the floor of the living room with the lights off, the projector's blank white square still burned into my eyes, and I drank until the edges blurred. I wanted the whiskey to drown her voice, to wash away the slideshow of a life I'd lived and lost without knowing it. But the more I drank, the louder the fragments got. A flash of her laughing in the kitchen of the blue house on Wave Street, flour on her cheek from whatever she was baking. Another of her asleep on my chest on a blanket at Asilomar, the tide loud enough to cover the sound of the camera shutter. Her hand sliding the ring onto my finger in a tiny backyard ceremony with only 6 people and a dog wearing a bow tie. They weren't memories. They were shrapnel. Each one cut deeper than the last. At some point, I crawled to the bedroom, fell across the bed fully dressed, shoes still on. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the room spinning slow circles. My phone buzzed on the nightstand over and over until I finally grabbed it. 15 missed calls from Pacific Grove Hospital. A voicemail time-stamped 3 hours ago. Mr. Caldwell, this is Dr. Patel from the ER. Nora Whitmore was admitted this evening. Severe dehydration, exhaustion, possible malnutrition. She's stable now, but she listed you as her emergency contact. Please call us back as soon as you can. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I don't know how I got behind the wheel again. I only know I drove through the empty streets with the windows down, the cold night air slapping me awake, the taste of bourbon sour on my tongue. I kept seeing her face in the darkroom, the way her voice cracked when she said, "I thought it was Mercy." I kept hearing the flat, clinical calm of the doctor's message. I made it to the hospital just after 4 in the morning. The corridor smelled like bleach and burnt coffee. A nurse pointed me to room 212. The door was ajar, a thin blade of fluorescent light cutting across the tile. Nora was propped up in the bed, IV line taped to the back of her hand, skin almost translucent under the harsh lights. Her eyes were closed, lips dry and cracked. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Like the past 3 days had taken 10 pounds she didn't have to spare. I stood in the doorway afraid to move, afraid the floor would creak and wake her, afraid it wouldn't, and I'd have to face the fact that she might never open her eyes again. She did. Slowly, like it hurt, her lids lifted. She looked at me for a long second, confused. Then recognition settled and something raw and exhausted moved across her face. "You came," she whispered, voice rasping. I crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to my knees beside the bed. My hands hovered over hers, terrified to touch in case I broke whatever was left. "I'm sorry," I said. The words scraped out. "I'm so fucking sorry." She shook her head barely. "Don't, you didn't do this." "I drank myself stupid because I couldn't handle hearing the truth," I said. "You collapsed because you've been carrying it alone for 3 years. That's on me." Her fingers found mine, cold but deliberate. "Listen to me," she said. "I'm afraid, Ethan. I'm afraid we're doing the same thing all over again. That we're 2 broken people reaching for each other in the dark just to feel less cold. I'm afraid I'll wake up one day and you'll still be looking at me like I'm someone you're trying to remember instead of someone you're choosing to love." The monitors beeped steady and indifferent. I rested my forehead against her knuckles. "I don't have the memories," I said, "but I have the feelings. They're coming back in pieces, like light leaks on old film, and every piece is you. I don't need to remember the life we had to know I want the life we could still have. I'm not here because I feel guilty. I'm here because the idea of leaving you again, even for one more day, feels like ripping my own heart out." She closed her eyes. A tear slid from the corner and disappeared into her hair. "I can't be your ghost," she whispered. You're not, I said. You're the only real thing I've got left. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the soft hiss of oxygen and the distant murmur of nurses. Then she squeezed my hand once, weak but certain. Stay, she said. Just stay tonight. I pulled the chair as close to the bed as it would go, sat down, and laid my head on the edge of the mattress beside her hip. She threaded her fingers through my hair the way you do when you've done it 1,000 times before. I didn't sleep. I listened to her breathe, counted every rise and fall of her chest like it was the shutter clicking on the most important photograph I'd ever take. At dawn, the fog lifted outside the window, and the first real light of the day spilled across the room. I looked at the ring on my finger, the one she'd placed there twice in 2 different lives, and I made the decision that changed everything. I was done letting the past decide the future. When the nurse came in at 7 to check vitals, I was still holding Nora's hand. I didn't let go. Not then, not ever again. After that night in the hospital, something shifted. The doctors kept Nora one more day for fluids and observation, and when they discharged her, I drove her home myself. She fell asleep against the passenger window before we left the parking lot, her hand resting on my thigh like it had never forgotten the way. We didn't talk about what we were. We just started living it. Mornings, I'd bring coffee to the bookshop before opening my own place. Afternoons, she'd walk down Lighthouse Avenue and sit in the back room while I scanned old negatives, reading aloud from whatever novel she was lost in. Evenings, we'd cook together in her tiny kitchen or mine, arguing over how much garlic was too much, laughing when the smoke alarm went off anyway. We took the coastal trail at sunset, her arm looped through mine, the fog rolling in like it was trying to keep us for itself. We were trying to rebuild the map of us, one small moment at a time. Some memories came back in flashes, the way she used to hum Billie Holiday while doing dishes, the exact weight of her head on my chest. Others stayed blank. It didn't matter. We were writing over the empty spaces with new ones. In late August, I got a dream assignment. A travel magazine wanted me to shoot 10 destination weddings along the Oregon coast over the course of a month. 10 sunsets, 10 first dances, 10 couples who still believe forever was a safe bet. The money was stupid good, the kind that could pay off the last of my medical debt and maybe buy us a better and larger. I didn't want to leave her. We stood on her porch the night before I left, the air thick with eucalyptus and salt. I'll be gone 5 weeks, I said. We'll talk every day. Video calls, photos, the works. She nodded, but her eyes were doing that thing they did when she was trying not to cry. I've waited 3 years, she said. I can wait 5 weeks. So I went. The first 3 weeks were magic. We talked morning and night. She'd hold the phone up so I could watch the sun rise over the bookshop's front window, while I sent her videos of waves crashing against Haystack Rock. We fell asleep on video, phones propped on pillows, breathing across 1,000 miles. Then week 4 happened. A storm took out cell towers for 3 days straight. When service came back, my phone died completely, salt water in the charging port. By the time I replaced it, I'd been dark for 7 full days. I didn't think, I just worked. Shot 2 weddings back to back, drove through the night to the next location, crashed in cheap motels with no Wi-Fi. I kept meaning to borrow a phone, send an email, anything. But exhaustion won every time. I didn't know what silence can do to someone who's already been left once. On the morning of the last wedding, a cliffside ceremony outside Cannon Beach, I finally got a new phone activated. The second it connected, the messages flooded in. Nora, day 1, hope the storm didn't eat you. Call when you can. Nora, day 3, starting to worry. Nora, day 5, I drove to 3 of the venues on your itinerary. You weren't there. Nora, day 6, if you're done with me, just say it. Don't make me disappear again. The last one was a voice memo, timestamped 2:14 a.m. I pressed play with shaking hands, her voice was shredded. I sat in the bookshop after closing and stared at the door like you used to walk through it. I keep thinking this is how it started last time. One accident, one silence, one goodbye I never got to say. I can't do this again, Ethan. I won't survive losing you twice. I left the wedding halfway through cocktail hour, got in the Jeep and drove south like the road was on fire. 14 hours straight, no stops except gas and coffee. I hit Monterey at dawn, the sky the color of abalone shell. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just went straight to the bookshop. The sign still said closed. The lights were off. I used the key she'd given me the week I left, the one I'd kept on my keyring every mile of the trip. She was sitting on the floor between the poetry and photography sections, knees drawn to her chest, surrounded by open boxes of my old prints, the ones she'd kept when she moved out 3 years ago. Her eyes were red, face pale, hair unwashed. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. When the bell jingled, she startled, looked up, and froze. I dropped to my knees in front of her, cupped her face in both hands. "I'm here," I said. "I'm here and I'm never disappearing again." She made this sound, half sob, half laugh, and then her arms were around my neck and she was shaking against me. "I thought," she started. "I know what you thought," I whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry." She pulled back just far enough to look at me, eyes searching. "Say it," she said, voice raw. "Say what this is." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small velvet box I'd carried for the last 200 miles. Inside was the same white gold band, cleaned, polished, the inside now engraved with the date of the accident and today's date, side by side. "I don't remember choosing you the first time," I said. "Let me choose you now." Her breath caught. I slid the ring onto her finger, the same finger that had been bare for 3 years. She stared at it, then at me, tears spilling over. "Marry me again," I said. "Not to fix the past, to keep the future." She didn't answer with words. She just kissed me like the world was ending and beginning at the same time, right there on the worn wooden floor between shelves of other people's stories. When we finally pulled apart, foreheads still touching, she laughed once. Wet, incredulous, free. "Maybe," she whispered against my mouth, "you should love someone who makes everything quiet when you're with them." I smiled. "I already do." The proposal wasn't on a cliff or under fireworks. It was in the back room of Still Frames at 3 in the morning, 3 weeks after I came back from Oregon. I'd spent days restoring every photograph we'd ever taken together. The ones she'd kept, the ones I'd found in forgotten hard drives, the ones strangers had sent me after the accident because they'd seen us happy in the background of their vacations. I printed them large, black and white, and wheat pasted them across every wall of the darkroom while she was asleep. When they were dry, I turned on only the red safe light so the room glowed like the inside of a heart. Then I went to the bookshop and brought her back blindfolded. When I took the cloth from her eyes, she gasped. Hundreds of versions of us stared down at her, laughing on piers, kissing in doorways, asleep on each other's shoulders in cars and trains and hospital chairs. The last photograph, the biggest one, was blank. Just pure white paper waiting in the enlarger tray. I got down on one knee in the red glow. "Nora," I said, voice shaking, "I don't remember the first time I asked you to marry me. I don't remember the day you said yes, but I remember every second since the morning you walked into my shop, carrying a box of almost lost pictures and asked me why I still wore the ring. I've been falling in love with you all over again, and this time, I get to do it with my eyes wide open." I opened the small box. Inside was the original white gold band, now joined by a second, thinner one. 2 rings that had once lived on 2 different fingers in 2 different lives. "Age doesn't matter," I said. 11 years, 20, 100. None of it changes the fact that when I'm with you, the noise in my head finally shuts up. I don't want to fix the past. I want to live the future with you in it. Marry me again. Not because we lost each other once, but because we found each other twice. She was crying before I finished. She didn't let me stand up. She just pulled me into her and kissed me like the first time and the last time all at once. "Yes," she whispered against my lips. 1,000 times yes. We married quietly 6 months later on a Tuesday morning in October. Just us, the judge, and the gulls outside the courthouse window. She wore a simple ivory dress. I wore the same shirt I had on the day she first walked into the shop. We slid both old rings onto her finger together, hers and mine, side by side, and promised nothing about forever, only about today and tomorrow. And every day, we woke up choosing each other again. 18 months after that, on a foggy dawn in early spring, our daughter was born. We named her June, after the light, after the month we got married the first time none of us can remember, after the way Nora's eyes look when she's happy. June has her mother's gray-green eyes and my inability to sit still. She learned to walk between the shelves of pages and salt and the counters of still frames, chasing dust motes in the projector light while we worked side by side. Some nights we close both shops early, carry her down to the beach, and watch the sun sink into the Pacific while she sleeps against Nora's chest. Sometimes people ask how we make it work with the years between us. I just smile and say, we already lost each other once. We're not foolish enough to do it again. Nora still runs the bookshop. I still bring dead photographs back to life. We never moved in together full time. She keeps her place above the store. I keep the bungalow by the sea. But every drawer in both houses has clothes belonging to the other, and every night ends with one of us walking through the other's door. On our daughter's first birthday, Nora took off the 2 old rings, melted them down, and had them forged into one new band. Simple, stronger, seamless. She slipped it onto my finger while June smeared cake across both of us. I wear this ring, she said. Not because I promised forever, because every morning I wake up and choose to stay. And every morning I choose her back. The past is still a place with holes in it, but the present is full and warm and ours, and that is more than enough.